Evening and welcome back to Books and Bush Tea. I am Aniki, your host for tonight. I'm surrounded by my four-legged co-workers who you'll probably hear throughout the night. But I'm just so excited because every time I hear that music, you notice we've changed the music at the beginning. I get so excited because the artist, who is actually a Caymanian artist, Jonathan Ebanks, used to play that piece in the neighborhood that I grew up in. He used to live down the street from us, and I would hear him at night, or even straight throughout a weekend. You'd hear him sitting on his porch playing, and that was one of his favorite things to play. But it gets us in the mood to talk about books and what the week has been like. So welcome to our newcomers. I think if we've got a few people joining us online already. Please let us know if you can hear us. We've got our comments open straight throughout. We have a really lovely guest today, and I'm super excited to enter into Women's Month together with us. So we're going to spend some time, first of all, catching up. I have had an interesting reading week. I haven't really, I kind of took a bit of a hiatus from Golden Sun, which is the third book in the Red Rising series, and I feel like it was a little bit I got world fatigue. I felt like I was living too long in that world, that dystopian world. It started to affect the way that I was operating in my daily life. So I took a little bit of a break from it. But I plan to pick it up this weekend. I think I'm going to have some time on my own to just like get back into it a little bit. But I actually picked up my nonfiction book, which of course was one of my goals for the year, and spent some more time in it. Now, you all know that I have been triggered by reading this book. It is A People's History of the United States, and I've shared it with you a few times because I feel like I read one chapter a week and then I have to like sit with it. I finished the chapter on the intimately oppressed, which of course was a history of women's rights in the U.S. And now I'm deep into this other one, which is the expansion of the United States as they moved west and into Mexican territory. And I am so triggered because now we're talking about the history of the indigenous peoples, which of course is a lot of it is just like skated over. We don't even talk about this in Caribbean history when we're studying at CXC level, which is the last time I studied Caribbean history, but I loved it. And I feel as though we are better educated about the facts of this history than most of the American population, and it blows my mind. This is so fundamental to who this country has become, and we aren't reading this stuff. We don't know this stuff, and these are the kinds of books that are banned. So if you're looking for a good banned book, A People's History of the United States, take your time though, because that is a tough one. She have it bad. But one chapter at a time, I'm making my way through it and I'm taking notes. I've gotten to the point where I had to go get like sticky notes and flag things because there are so many bars. But what was really powerful was the end of to me, and I'm going to look for this quote as I go. So if you can't see me too well, right? At the end of the chapter on women, they talked about the intersectionality. And the quote by Sojourner Truth, her "Ain't I a Woman" speech. At some point in time over the course of this month, I am going to read that speech from beginning to end because I feel like it fits. There's so many questions now. I feel as though Sojourner Truth's experience of reality was much closer to the modern woman's experience of having to provide for herself, not being coddled, being a powerhouse in her own life, being the agent of her own life, and at the same time having so much working against her. That speech I found to be so powerful that I underlined everything in it, and I'm going to read that out at some point during the course of this month. But this month is, of course, Women's Month. And we're going to get into talking about Women's Month in a little bit. But I had a question last week from a viewer. You'll remember that last week we talked about how to ask for a book recommendation. And you might not remember it, but if you don't remember, I actually have it. I have the outline of how to ask for a good book recommendation on our Instagram. So you'll see the video, right? I put the Instagram, I just put our Instagram account. You can find us at Books and Bush Tea. below. And I'm going to jump on Instagram because I just realized that we're not yet on there. So give us a second and you'll be able to join us on the CMR Instagram page as well. So if you're not seeing us there, let us know. But we're jumping on there now as well. So last week, we talked about how to ask for a good recommendation. And if you've not read a book in a long time, you don't really know what you want to read, one of the first places to start is, do you want to read fiction or nonfiction? Right? Do you want to get into a story or do you want to get into something factual? And I highly recommend avoiding nonfiction that is like self-help, because that is not, I feel as though if you're trying to get into the habit of reading, you read for entertainment first. Then you build yourself up that stamina to be able to jump into something that is more educational. It's like reading a textbook. Do you really want to start there? Come on. We put them down at the end of our studies and we often don't want to pick them back up. And that actually turns a lot of people off of reading. But last week's guest talked a lot about really good nonfiction books. He reads a lot of biographies, and there was one about I Wish My Mother Was Dead, or I'm Glad My Mother's Dead, which was an interesting one. It's nonfiction. It's her own memoir about a really tough relationship with her mother and her mother passing. There was another one he read, which is In Too Deep by our very own Lee Rich, about his very prolific and record-breaking drug trafficking enterprise in the 1970s and 80s, I think it was, mostly in the 80s. So that was an interesting one. There's a lot of really good, interesting nonfiction. So fiction or nonfiction. And then the next question was, what genre are you looking for? Are you looking for, because fiction and nonfiction, like they're split down into smaller genres, right? Do you want to look at fantasy? Do you want to look at detective books? Do you want to look at true crime? What's the kind of book that you want? And one of our recommendations was to take a look at the kind of movies that you like to watch. Ask when you're asking for a recommendation, and you can send us these recommendations on Instagram or by email, or requests for recommendations. You can tell us like what kind of movies you like, and I'll be able to find you something similar. Do you want it to be heavy? Do you want it to be light? Do you want it to be short? Do you want it to be long? Do you want it to be high stakes? Do you want it to be cozy? Any other things that you're looking for? So we had a really good request last week for a recommendation, and it was by, let me tell you, it was by a viewer who went by the name of high caliber 50 millimeter or something like that. Real gangsta type vibe on that name, by the way. But the question was, he was looking for something similar to, he gave me the name of the movie and I looked it up and I can't remember the name of the movie right now. But he was looking for something kind of like a dystopian story where people have powers. So I found a couple. And one was the Atlas 6, which I think is an awesome series, but it's a little heavy. But it's this group of people who have different special powers, and they come together in this special school to become the best in the world at what they do. And it starts to get very, very dark. Then I actually found some recommendations online that, because of course, we're part of a larger book community. And one of them was The Power by Naomi Alderman. Another book recommendation was The Book of Strange New Things by Michael Faber. And I have a really interesting one here called The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. Now, as far as nonfiction spirituality, which was another part of the request for a recommendation, like, do you have any really good books on spirituality? A nonfiction one, this is one of my favorites, and it's like a gateway drug. So be careful entering into this unless you want to really want to explore like psychology and the way the mind works and where we go when we sleep. And it was Journeys Outside of the Body by Robert Monroe. Now, this was written in the 1950s. Fascinating set of books, because this is the first of 3 books, Journeys Outside of the Body. He talks about astral travel and how he stumbled into it. And his is not a professional telling you how to do it. His is an experiencer telling you what his experience was like. And it's actually tracking his journeys through his journal. He actually journaled about it quite a lot. So those are my 3 recommendations. Atlas 6, by Olivia Blake. The Power by Naomi Alderman. The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. And then nonfiction spirituality was Journeys Outside of the Body by Robert Monroe. And I also like anything by Joseph Campbell. I feel like Joseph Campbell does a lot of like nonfiction mythology. So if mythology is what you're after, and you're not actually looking for someone to preach at you, but you're looking at probably like a more academic view on the history of belief, a really good place to go, and a short one would be Goddesses by Joseph Campbell. I'm just thinking about this on the fly now. I should have thought of this earlier. And he has a good series called The Masks of God. But I mean, one of these books is encyclopedic in size. Like he's got about 4 books in that series: Occidental mythology, Oriental mythology, primitive mythology, which of course is not a politically correct term anymore. And then the final one is creative mythology. And those are the Masks of God, the Masks of God series by Joseph Campbell. Excellent series. So I hope that tickles your fancy, High Caliber. Thank you for being a viewer. And please feel free to come back with more recommendation requests and let us know how those books went for you. The Atlas 6 is probably my biggest bet. And if you're into that, let me know, because I've got other ones that are a little lighter than that. See, as you get into it, you'll see what you like, and then we can refine your tastes as you go. Like you can narrow it down to a certain type of genre as you go along. So that was really good. Thank you for trusting us with your recommendation, because that's one of the things I really want this show to be about, getting you to connect to books that you really like, books that are gonna grab you and pull you in. So today we are entering Women's Month. We have a new theme for Women's Month this month. Every year we have a theme. And this year the theme is Give to Gain. To discuss Women's Month and our theme tonight, which is why we need women to write, why women, it's so important to have the voice of women in the written canon that we have available to us. We have Dr. Stephanie Fullerton-Cooper from UCCI. She's an associate professor of language and literature in the Arts and Humanities Department at the University College of the Cayman Islands. She holds a BA honors, an MPhil, and PhD in literatures in English from the University of the West Indies, Mona. Woohoo, Mona. Along with a postgraduate diploma in education and a Master of Laws, an LLM, in Law and Legal Studies from BPP University in the United Kingdom. Her work focuses on Caribbean literature, women's studies, and the promotion of Caribbean women's voices in scholarship and writing. This is something that she does very actively, not only here, but throughout the region. She serves as publications editor for the Association of Caribbean Women Writers and Scholars, the ACWWS, which I was introduced to by her in 2025. And she's played a leading role in strengthening the literary culture in the Cayman Islands, including the co-founding of the Cayman Literary Society and helping bring major regional academic conferences to the islands. Dr. Fullerton-Cooper has published widely. She's co-edited several scholarly volumes and continues to support the development of Caribbean writers and researchers. She's married and she's a proud mother of nearly 18-year-old twins. So that lady this lady's a strong one, okay? Welcome, Dr. Fullerton.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for having me, Aniki.
It's such a pleasure, and I've been dying to get you on anyway. Like I've been looking for the right moment to bring
Here
you.
I am. I should have some bush tea in my hand or something, but
that's okay. I got you covered.
I'm a hot chocolate kind of girl,
mm.
But really loving the name
girl, but in the morning. But bush tea is an important thing too. Like it's part of the culture. We have to not forget.
Our mothers told us. And because they are such voices of wisdom, I don't disbelieve it. I just have not developed the appetite
for it. I hear you. I hear you. I love a good bush tea. And the one that I don't think people know about that I keep coming back to in my childhood, because my good Jamaican daddy believes in his bush tea, right?
There you go.
So he likes, the avocado pear leaf?
Yeah, that can make a tea.
Wow, that's a nice tea.
I've never tried it.
It is so good.
You and your daddies.
Me and my daddy. He made me try it. Like I've tasted some disgusting things in my lifetime, including aloe vera and cerasee. But my dad was that from him.
Oh yeah. He
he
when I think of bush tea, and that still has horrible memories for me. The bitterness, the unpleasantness. It wasn't something my mother could easily get down my throat at all.
Fair
So
enough.
to this day, so many years later, it's still not a preferred
I
hot dish.
understand, but there's nothing like a good Saint Elizabeth black mint.
Take your word for it.
Oh, good. But Dr. Fullerton-Cooper, I want to talk to you about this theme because I want to start our day with that because I have so many questions. When I first, as you know, I was saying this to you earlier, my first response to this theme was, really?
Give to gain.
Eh, you know, it's give to gain. Haven't we given enough? Like
That's where you're going to go. This whole idea that, oh, they're calling on women to give some more. Haven't we given enough? Haven't we given our everything? But I think for this particular theme, it is not just about giving to everyone, but it's also giving to ourselves,
yeah.
giving to our daughters and our granddaughters.
Mm-hmm.
It's giving to other women. But I think the more important aspect of it is we give to gain.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it comes right back at us. So I
Yeah.
didn't respond to it the same way you did, but I do appreciate that response, of course. You are Aniki.
Yeah.
And I also do understand that it is open to those kind of interpretations. Might have been deliberately put forward for that kind of titillation and stimulation
Mhm.
of thought.
I thought it was a little provocative. I really thought it was provocative because with the movement, with the 4B movement in Korea and the pushback against some of the like the trad wife movement, right? There's so many things where women are like, we're not about that life no more, right? So there's this
We're done
halt
with
on the giving for free, like not seeing, looking for equitable exchange. Right. And I
fair
feel like
enough.
that's something that I feel like they had to have known that when they put it forward. So it is provocative. But
Let's
how I'm
propose
choosing
that
to
one for
interpret
next
it.
year's theme. Let's
Yeah.
put that forward.
Yeah. I wonder where we can do how you can contribute to that because I'd love to be part of that conversation. But this thought around this now is how I'm choosing to interpret it is that as it's more of an instruction to states. It's not just an instruction to women, and we internalize a lot instantly, which is probably where the instinct the instinct to push back on that came from. But there's also this thought around, if we give to women and if we are investing in women, the entire community around them, that they hold together, because women are the glue, the relational glue, the whole community then
Absolutely.
benefits, and it returns with raising the tide for us all. So that's how I'm
Right.
choosing to interpret it.
Yes, please do, because the truth is, we are all happier if we do that interpretation, right? And I like your final thought that it really isn't necessarily a speech to women to give. It's really the community is to give.
Yeah.
Because, of course, when you give to women, to the female aspect of your communities, then, of course, you gain as well. Like you said, women are the glue.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So definitely we can see the benefit of seeing it this way. But we're here to talk about you. And we're
actually,
here
we're
to
here to
get
talk about women writers.
This is true, but I want to start the conversation because this is what I usually start the conversation with for most of my readers. And I know that you're a reader and I'm dying to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
What is your reader origin story? When did you become a reader?
For me, reading came as a natural result of storytelling. When I grew up in Jamaica, storytelling was very popular in our home. Our dad would tell stories, especially on dark nights.
Mm-hmm.
And as we got older, one of my older sisters would take on the role of telling stories. And so for me, the first thing about reading was really storytelling. And so I went in search of stories in books. And that has always been fascinating. One of the things we also did as kids is we would compete with who could read excerpts better. And later on, I realized how very instrumental that was in improving our speech, our communication skills, and all of that. But it was never about a lesson, it was really about entertainment. And so I started to read. I would read anything that I could get my hands on. I also learned early in life that my mother would give me a wide berth if I had my nose in a book.
Mm-hmm.
And someone who hated anything domestic, my nose was always in a book. So she would not call on me to do the dishes or to do whatever chore because
Mm-hmm.
she went, "Oh, Stephanie's reading." And so that was adequate. I also recall, you talk about the origins, and you have really sent me on a walk down memory lane. But I also recall playing hide and go seek
Mm-hmm.
as a child. And I chose to hide under my, at that time, I guess she was my teenage sister's bed. I was about 9 at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I came upon a collection of Mills and Boons.
I knew. Listen, there's always a place. There's always a stash
Listen,
of
they were under the bed because my mom would have had her, had she found out that she had this collection. So they were hidden. And because
Mm-hmm.
I went hiding, I came across this collection. Can I tell you, it was one of the most amazing findings because here now I didn't just have 1 or 2 books. I had like 50 books to just
Gosh.
go through. And I was 9, but I was reading, not because I was enthralled by anything else but the words. And so for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
my origin story is just this fascination with
Mm-hmm.
words that have lingered. As you just said in reading my bio, my first 3 degrees are in English, and people look at me and go, "You have 3 degrees in English? Why does anybody do that?"
That's love. That's what that is right there.
Out of love, out of love. For me, it's
Yeah.
just so fascinating that every story begins with a paragraph, every paragraph with a sentence, every sentence with a word, every word with a letter, and that
Mm.
the 26 letters of the alphabet are able to create the amazing words and ideas and thoughts that they do. So I'm a connoisseur of reading. It is something that for me is as necessary as breathing. And I have always been tickled my whole life that, hey, I am being paid to read.
I hear you.
I,
Oh
I,
my
I
goodness.
find it so amazing.
I'm jealous. I really am. And you also did a degree in law. I saw that. Can you
I
know,
did.
because of course that is my background, and I found that I had to develop a different relationship to words.
Absolutely. It's a different type. My interest is creative writing.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
do nonfiction writing, but I really love creative writing. And so for me, law did not have that creativity that I hunger for
Yeah.
yet. And I'll tell you this for me was fascinating because I keep telling everybody that I didn't absolutely enjoy my legal studies. But what I found myself being pulled to were the expressions,
Mhm,
the
mhm,
words, the and
mhm.
hereafter, thus,
Yeah.
etc. I found the words to be absolutely fascinating, and it concretized for me that, yeah, you're doing what you really want to. Law isn't it,
Mhm.
necessarily, because even in studying the rules of law, I was going, oh, what fascinating expression.
Yeah.
It's how the words were strung together that still appeals to me. I'm very happy I did it. I mean, I've learned so much. I'm
Mhm.
positioned to help so many people, I believe, but the words got it. They really got me.
No, I hear you. I can see that. I remember I enjoyed the study of law as long as there were stories,
There you are. And the
right? So
historical
case
details
law.
as well.
Yeah, and that's why I loved criminal law to study it. I loved medical law. I ended up in medical
But
anyway,
that was my
obviously.
passion.
I really enjoyed tort and medical, and so the stories kept me going through it, but
Yes.
the precision of the language I found very stifling, right? So that was one of the things that I struggled with as a writer. You got
Mhm.
somebody hailing you up, Susana's sierva de Jesucristo. She's sending you a flower, Miss
Oh,
Fullerton-Cooper.
thank you so much.
So we have some really interesting things to cover tonight because of course we're taking a look at women as writers
Yes.
and what they bring to the table. What is it that women bring to the literary world that no one else can?
Ah, that's a really good question. I think women, firstly, for me, they're relatable.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
perspective they bring, no one else can.
Hmm.
No one else can bring the perspective that women do. Even if we're looking at the same topic as a male writer, we bring a different spin to it. For
Yeah.
me, that is absolutely interesting and exciting. I also think women writers, especially women writers in the Caribbean, but even if we think back to olden British days, women writers are heroic.
Yes.
They write in defiance of the stifling conditions they were subjected to.
That's so true.
Remember, it is true. Remember now that if we go back to British literature and British history, women had to write under male pseudonyms.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. So Charlotte Bronte, who wrote Jane Eyre, she would have written as Currer Bell. That was her
Hmm.
pseudonym, and that's the name of a male. Her sister, Emily Bronte, who wrote Wuthering Heights, she wrote as Ellis Bell. So they weren't allowed to write because women were supposed to entertain and be domestic, etc. So
Hmm.
the fact that they dared to take on a pseudonym, take on another identity, wore another role just so that they could do what they love. For me, that's an act of defiance. And then when you put it in a Caribbean context, if you remember, in the 1930s and 50s, when writing really boomed in the Caribbean by Caribbean writers, because
Hmm. Hmm.
remember,
Hmm.
blacks in the Caribbean were not supposed to have brain, we're not supposed to be able
Not
to
supposed
write,
to be the
etc.
threat. Hmm.
When they did start to write, it was the males who wrote because they were the ones who had been educated following emancipation. So
Okay.
women were still not writers even then. And we really didn't become writers until decades later,
Hmm.
when through feminist movements, increased education, women were now able to write. And so for me, the very act of writing by women is an act of defiance. And for
Yeah.
me, women writers then become heroes. They are heroic in just putting pen to paper. And
Oh
I
my
think
goodness.
it is true. I remember in 2022, I was invited by the Jamaica consulate here in Cayman as we were celebrating Jamaica 60 to
Hmm.
do a very small presentation on writing and how writing had become so prevalent in the Cayman Islands, in the Caribbean, and it was what I talked about. I literally spoke about writing in defiance and how, as we celebrate the various things that we have accomplished since emancipation, since slavery, etc. We have to celebrate our writers. And we have to, on top of that, celebrate our female writers. And
Hmm.
when they became writers, they brought this perspective, like I said, that had not previously existed. And so they also challenged the patriarchal system. That
It's
for
so
me is
true.
exciting about female writings and writers as well. We're constantly having to establish and to defy. We write about everything. We write about our struggles, our personal lives, our relationships. There's nothing outside of the scope that cannot be made into creativity. And I think that's just fascinating about women writers.
I hear you, and there's something too about the just to break down that thing about being relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a podcast that I listen to sometimes called Empire. It's a historical podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and it's headed up by William Dalrymple, who is a historian from Scotland, and Anita Anand, who is from London, of Pakistani background.
Mm-hmm.
And she often, whenever they interview a writer that is written about a period of history, and empire in particular, she's always asking, where are the women? And she's
Yeah,
always asking, what were they wearing? How tall were they? And these are
exactly.
the things that women actually capture. Women capture the the
Seemingly small and insignificant, but only so that they can demonstrate how significant it is.
and it's subtleties, right?
Yes.
There are little subtleties that are not necessarily. Oh, we have some folks coming in that are sending us comments. It's the
Mhm.
subtleties of scene, right?
Yes.
Because the presence is described when you actually break the person down into how they appear. And we got
Right.
this reference to Miss Lou coming into the scene of the Caribbean lexicon was just like her writing, and lexicon might not be the word. I think canon
Yes,
is
yes,
probably
please
it.
use that word. It is actually correct. And when you think about heroism and the heroic female writer, you have to think of Miss Lou.
Miss Lou is number one, and they were talking.
Number
There's
one.
a conversation right now about whether Bob Marley should be made into a national hero, and I'm like, not before Louise Bennett. Like absolutely not before Louise Bennett. She was such a prolific writer, and
Yes.
you're seeing her writing never dies. It's still being performed, right? A
And it's
lot of
still
her poetry is still
influencing
being
other writers. I remember
performed.
interviewing Nasara Sukushalet a short while ago, and she said, Miss Lou gives me permission to write the way I speak.
Yes,
I know in your own work,
yes.
you mentioned, I'm going to write in my Cayman tongue, in my Cayman language,
Hmm,
because
hmm.
this is who I am. I remember that point where you talked about the fellow classmate who mentioned why you talk like that, and that answer you gave was just on point, because Miss
Miss
Lou
Lewis,
has influenced and
yes.
has said, listen, we have not derived, or language isn't a corroboration of or a demeaning of another. It
Hmm,
is good word, good
hmm,
language, etc. And
hmm,
it has given
hmm.
so many other female and male writers in the Caribbean permission, as Nasaria correctly said, to write how we speak.
I also believe that women have a different sense of humor, and I think that Miss Lou brought is a good example of that. But Joan Andrea Hutchinson is another one.
Oh my gosh, that bumpy head girl.
Oh, I love her so much. I love
That's what
Joan.
it was.
They had her perform. They performed some of her poems at the past Gimme Story, and every time a friend of mine and I went together, and as they started, we started to just feel it in the
Yes.
system because she's one
Yes.
of my favorites. But the sense of humor and laughing at the mundane,
At the
and
mundane,
they
at the
you know
everyday.
at the everyday. Yeah. And so we got Alfred Real is saying Miss Lou inspired some of my own writing as a man. So yeah, I can
Right.
imagine, like, the authenticity is what she gave us all permission to have,
Oh,
and
absolutely. And we are
she
saying
was,
that she influences everyone. It's just that as a female writer,
yeah,
she zeroed in on this aspect. I mean, Edward Kamau Brathwaite talked a lot about nation language, and he promoted the language of the people as well. But Miss Lou not only promoted it in her writing, but in her very acting, her deliveries. She made us realize that, or mannerisms, which is a whole language on its own, right?
yeah.
The very mannerisms, that those are okay as well, and they're fit for public stage and for international attention and all of that. So yes, she influences both males and females, but this little woman
Hmm.
is who we are saying was heroic in just that very act.
She really was, and her joy, I feel, was an act of defiance in and of itself.
Yes.
And she
And the
brought
wit.
that to children.
Yes, you mentioned Bumpyhead Girl, and you
Hmm.
mentioned Louise Bennett and how funny they were. The
Yeah.
subtlety of their humor for me is also significant. They were
Mhm.
really witty, which showed themselves to be such smart women who, as I said, historically were not supposed to, should not have accomplished. But the subtlety of their words, the nuances of the language that they brought to the fore that resulted in humor, that was definitely something that we want to applaud. That's definitely something we should applaud.
I love that you speak to these women in particular because of course those are Caribbean voices. Those are Caribbean
Mhm.
voices, and Nasaria is our own very Caymanian voice.
Yes.
And I remember having a conversation with Mr. Roy, because Mr. Roy is very dear to us both.
Yes, to
You,
us
you have
both.
written you've written the forewords to some of his books, and I've
Absolutely.
done one as well. And of course, he was very supportive. He's been supportive of most of us who have come out into the writing world, right?
Good.
And I remember talking to him about his journals, because of course I am a journaler.
Oh,
I've
are
been
you?
journaling. Oh, I've been journaling since I was 8 years old.
When
I
will
thought
that
I
be
was
published, I
12.
wonder?
What's that?
When will that be published, I wonder?
Oh, my niece is gonna inherit that. That's gonna be her project, and she needs to be in charge of Auntie's legacy. So, but he and I talked about how he journaled, because I recognize, even this is something that he and I talked about, and I've had this conversation elsewhere, and I can't remember exactly where, but I think it may have come also out of the discussion with Empire, the two hosts of Empire,
Hmm.
that men journal very differently from women.
Yes.
We talk a lot about our internal world, our processing of thought. We talk
Mhm.
about the tactile parts of life as well. So you'll find, like, in my journal today, I probably talked a little bit about my view on the war, and at the same time, what I the dream I had the night before, and what I had for breakfast. So you know what I mean? Like the breadth of what is journaled
Yes.
by a woman is often a lot more chaotic, a lot less
Yeah.
channeled, and and whereas Mr. Roy has dates, times, and records. Like
He's
he
archiving.
right? He journals like a ship captain, you know, like the way that you would expect, like that Columbus would have journaled as well, right?
Mhm. You know
Alfred.
what's interesting? As I hear you saying this, it comes back to what I said interests me about women's writing, that they really are looking at the everyday and they bring these perspectives into the fore that might have been overlooked. I just completed the editing of a special bilingual issue of Macomere, which is a academic journal by
Mhm.
women, and
Okay.
we looked at the Hispanophone, women from the Spanish Caribbean.
Mhm.
And there's one particular essay where this woman is writing about her grandmother's sewing, how her grandmother would sew, and it is the essay that stands out for me because it was such a simple act, and I could not believe the academic depth that she brought to the fore from such a simple act. She talked about the fact that her grandmother sewed, the fabrics, the textures, the patterns, how
Mhm.
all of these meant something, how her grandmother made her part of that experience, and how this very act of weaving and sewing was the
Mhm.
whole act of creating something permanent,
Yes.
something indelible, and how, of course, the mother was passing on these cultural practices and beliefs, even as she sewed and told her stories, and of course, the relationship that was being built, etc. And there was just so much seemingly to this simple act, the
Mhm.
act of sewing.
Mhm.
These are the little things women bring to the fore, and they make the simple into the profound. I find that that is absolutely fascinating for me.
There is a detail, an eye for detail, and the magic of the mundane, as you said. And
Yes,
I'd love to read that because my grandmother herself was a seamstress, so that sounds like an experience I would
it
relate to.
is. It's amazing.
You know, Crystal has sent us a note. Would love to invite you to our women's tea party on Saturday. Send me an email and let me know where to be and how to be there. I think I might be able to be there this
There
weekend.
you go.
I'll put our emails up. Please feel free to reach out to us between sessions as well. But our let me take a look because we have so much to get through because there is a so the email is there now. You can see it. I'd love to hear your take on the Caribbean ecosystem uh,
Mhm.
around writing and supporting of women's writing because I'm so grateful that you introduced me to the Association of Caribbean Women's Writers and Scholars. I
Yes.
thoroughly enjoyed myself,
I
and I
know, and we enjoyed having you.
it was such a pleasure, and the company
It
was
was.
so good. Can I tell you? I have to tell you. I walked into the room right because I first of all I was not familiar with the format, so I had no idea how to present. So I was going to wing it, and then I walked into the room and I was like, you know something, I am kind of nervous about my subject matter because, of course, what I talked about was like witchcraft and what would have been seen as witchcraft that was integrated in the Cayman woman's experience.
Mhm.
And I was like, these people they're gonna pray me out of this if I bring this in here. And it's
Not
so
in
funny.
academia.
I got there early, and I got there in time to hear a lady present on the sukunya. I was like, okay, these are my people.
Yes, you're at home. You're at home.
Of course, there's a lady that was talking about Dominican voodoo, and
Yes,
I made so many good friends that I'm still in touch with. I'm so grateful for you bringing that because that's one piece of what you've connected us to, right?
absolutely. Let's set a little bit of context so that
Yeah.
your listeners understand. So what we're talking about is the Association of Caribbean Women Writers and Scholars. I'm a proud member of the executive of that group. Like its name says, these are Caribbean women writers and scholars who have come together to celebrate women writing, to promote women writing, to support each other, etc. And so last year, was it June? June, I believe,
I think
I invited them here for an academic conference at UCCI, and our wonderful Aniki was one of our few. Local women. No, there were a few others, but you were one of the local women who presented, and it was so very well received. It was so very well received, especially because you spoke so much about Cayman
Mhm.
as a female, as a writer yourself. They were able to learn about the country, learn about the culture, learn about, just the different things that happen here among women, etc. And several of them said to me afterwards, "Oh, that was so refreshing. We got to learn so much about Cayman." So it was really lovely to have had you be part of that. So she's saying she was a little bit nervous because, of course, it's an academic setting, a little bit outside of what you would have been accustomed to. But the beauty about these women that you have correctly stated is there's no topic that you can bring that we won't relate to and we won't enjoy.
I,
And
I
as you correctly saw, so many others had the similar interest. And we were looking at witchcraft, voodoo, etc., not necessarily in a religious sense, but in an
Mhm,
academic sense,
mhm.
and looking at these as real parts of what women experience in their day-to-day lives. And so that becomes fodder for discussion as well.
Yeah, it was a really powerful experience, and I think one of the things that I walked away with more than anything else was like the feeling of the warmth of it, because there
Yes.
were there were different generations of women in the
Yes.
room, and it just felt so welcoming, and it was so cool to be there. And then of course Miss Joy, she joined us the following day for the second
Yes, she
day.
did.
Miss Joy Basdeo, she joined us. That was lovely. I One
And
of the things that it struck me as well too was that, so now that you're describing writing as a defiance, I actually saw that in the room with
yes,
that group. And one
yes,
of the discussions we had, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a presentation on Portia Simpson.
yes, I remember.
And the question, and of course I'm provocative as I sometimes am. We asked the question about, this thought that her presentation and the way that she carried herself was always often compared to, say, Lisa Hanna, right, in the
Mhm,
Jamaican
mhm.
political context. And I loved the debate that came out of that and the discussion, because there's something about the I can't, I'm not sure I should get too deep into this right now, but there's something about that manufactured and manicured presentation of womanhood in the Caribbean context that makes me itch.
Well,
So I was so pleased to hear someone presenting
and I think
this
what was
this thought
interesting
of
too is that the presenter was such a young woman.
yeah,
She
yeah.
was, like you said, there were different ages and
Mhm.
stages and states, etc. But yes, she was really young. She did present a very academic presentation. I think, if I'm understanding you well, the presentation of Lisa Hanna and Mama P, as she was referred to in Jamaica,
Mhm,
as
mhm, mhm.
polar opposites, the
Yes.
manicured versus
And
yes,
use it correct, and using Lisa Hanna to disparage Mama P, right?
yes.
So that really has triggered me for many years. And I really wanted to hear the room respond to it. And I mean, the way that it was responded to was so good. I mean,
Listen,
the the violent defense. It
yes, yes,
was
no,
so
and
good.
the
It
truth
was so
is,
good. I'm with the people.
these were women from the diaspora. So
Hmm.
there were lots of Caribbean women, but there were lots of women from the region who were living in the US or in
Yeah.
Canada, etc. And so there's just so many perspectives. I call this group a community of skirts because it is just this, it's a community of skirts. It's just all
Yeah.
these women who are excited and passionate about the same thing you are excited and passionate about.
Mhm,
And for
mhm,
me, this is what makes ACWWS so amazing. If you are a fledgling writer, they'll support you. If you need guidance, counseling, if you need support as you put forward your academic works or just your creative writing, etc.
mhm,
Such an amazing community of skirts. And I think that's what is really potent about
mhm.
having women in the same room,
Yeah.
women of the same interest, like you said, despite the age, the stage, the academic prowess, the creative, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. When women come together, something powerful happens. And that is often captured in the writings. It's certainly, I mentioned that women writing came after the males some decades later, but it was in the 90s that female critical assessment of women writing actually also saw a rise. And so what we're doing is not just writing, not just the writing like you do, but the academic assessment and the critique of these writings also help to sharpen and refine it. And ACWWS, I think, does both very well.
Mhm, mhm. I would love to hear your advice to someone entering into the world of writing and how to support them. How would you, so it's a couple of different things.
Hmm.
How would you advise someone entering into the world of writing? They have something to say and they just want to write. Like,
Mhm.
what would be your advice on how to start them off? And then the second part to the question is, where would you send that woman for support?
I'm assuming this is a woman in Cayman.
Yeah, yeah. This would be the women in Cayman, the women that are,
Yes, let's just
and the
use
truth
that
is, the folks
as a
are
kind of
Cayman diaspora because they're folks overseas as well,
absolutely.
that watch this as well.
Don't drag my tongue and don't trouble this girl. This is a
No
mama
doubt,
people
no
too.
trouble. I'm not
Gorgeous
afraid of
and
no man,
vanilla.
no girl, nowhere.
Memorable. Memorable for a number of reasons. To go to
Yeah.
your question though,
Hmm.
Aniki, it's always a difficult question to answer because people are so individualized, what they want to write, how they wish to express it. I think one of the first things we need to do is to know what we want to write and embrace how we write. I
Yeah.
think it's also important for potential and fledgling writers to know that one of the larger aspects to writing is perspiring. It is not easy, which is why writers are an esoteric group, why it's only a few people who actually attain the levels that you and others do, because it definitely is hard work.
Hmm.
So once they're willing to put in the work, once they have something to say, because you can have something to say and express it in multiple ways, it doesn't have to just be through writing. But
True.
if you've decided that you do want to write, then there is a group, there's a society, there is already someone who is writing. And when I heard you ask this question initially, I thought, I think Aniki is better poised to tell this story than I. You are in a better position because you have actually walked this road. But the truth is,
Yes and no. I've walked it alone. In many ways, I shouldn't say alone. I have been very well supported, but I have been supported by my community, not necessarily been the part of a community of writers, which is something I'm
oh,
actually
which is
aspiring to
different.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aspiring to joining that community. So of course the AC WWS was one
ACWS.
that I definitely wanted to join, but I would
Yeah.
love to hear more about what is out there because I'm so excited to hear that there is a the Cayman Literary Society. I think you said
Yes.
has been created, right?
Yes. I am one of the co-founders of that, along with
So
Karen Chin
tell
of
us about
CLM
these.
Publishing.
Okay,
And what we
that's my
are doing is
publisher.
we are, pardon?
She's my publisher. Miss
There you
Karen
go.
Finn. Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. We do have a group here, Friends of the library itself, the Literary
Mhm,
Society, um, the CLM Publishing,
mhm,
these groups and individuals who are willing to do hand holding and to guide. I
mhm,
have to talk about young writers in Cayman. This is a group that the Friends of the Library, CLM Publishing, Literary Society, we're trying to produce that next generation of writers, not produce, but simply guide in some ways that next generation of writers. And we're starting with children, we're starting with the youth in the schools,
mhm,
etc. But if you don't fit that context, you are a mature person, you feel you have something to say, you want to write, then you do have various groups that meet at the library. You can contact CLM Publishing. I
mhm,
think that Karen Chin is to be lauded for so much of what she has accomplished. She's
mhm.
provided publishing for persons in the Cayman Islands through a publishing house here. And I
Yeah.
think, having read so many of her works, there is nothing substandard about
Mhm.
what she produces, about what is published through her organization. So that's definitely someone and an organization you could tap into. Friends
Yeah.
of the Library have been phenomenal. There is a competition every year. My children have benefited. They are published authors as a result of this.
Oh, wow.
Um, Pardon?
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yes.
amazing.
My daughter actually won the competition the second year around.
Okay.
Oh, yes. And she has represented the Cayman Islands in the region through her
Mhm,
writing. So
mhm,
for me, it's not about her specifically or what's happening with her, but just the opportunity that is out there for locals who want to write. There is the Cayman Poetry Society, for those who are
Mm-hmm.
into poetry, open mic sessions. And I
Mm-hmm.
find that the schools are actually also putting on these open mic sessions. We do it at UCCI. I know it is done at CIS about every quarter at
Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn. I believe it is the Brooklyn restaurant in Camana Bay. There's an open mic session where people can share their own works and stuff like that. So there is a community. There is a community here in the Cayman Islands. There is a regional community in ACWWS, an international community. And I also want to say that spaces like the University of the West Indies
Okay.
throughout the Caribbean, oh yes, the literature department, the literary studies departments, the Black studies departments, and in some ways the social science areas as well, they
Mm-hmm.
do offer courses in creative writing. They do offer courses in screenwriting, but what we might be most interested in is the fact that they have these open free sessions. I am constantly getting emails, as
Oh,
this is my
wow.
algorithm, that
Mm-hmm.
says we're having this film, we're doing this training, we're having this presentation, and it's a wonderful opportunity for just about anybody to be part of it. So it's
Mm-hmm.
definite. There are definitely opportunities there and groups that we can become attached to.
Have you ever been to Calabash?
I haven't. It is something that is on my bucket list. And I
Mm-hmm.
haven't simply because I have almost 18-year-old twins. And it has
Yeah.
just been
Okay.
very, very difficult over the last 18 years to abandon them. But I have been in touch with several persons who have gone. Calabash
Mm-hmm.
is just one. Do you want to explain what Calabash is before
Yes, I
we?
do. So
I would.
Calabash, and you may just keep me honest because I have heard about Calabash from non-literary people in
Oh,
Saint Elizabeth. Okay, so that's where our roots
oh,
are. And of course, so Calabash is a literary festival that takes
yes.
place at Jake's in Saint Elizabeth on an annual basis. And of course that's up the road. Up the road is where my family lives. So
You,
when from the time I was a little one, sorry.
you need to be there. You need
I've
to
been
go.
dying to go. I've been dying to go, but I know that Jake's was very badly hit by the storm. So I actually wanted to reach out to them anyway to find out what was going on with them because we could. There's so much we could be doing to support them as well.
Yeah.
But um, that is a. It is a. I have read some of the. Oh gosh, what is the word for this? I lose my words sometimes when I'm speaking. Collections of works, multiple works. What's the word for this again? It's like short story collections that come out of Calabash.
Right.
There was one that came out called, I think it's called Let Iron Balloons, I think it was called.
I'm not familiar with that
But
one. Sorry.
it came out of Calabash, but they have a few of them that
Quite a
are
few.
that I really, really enjoyed reading.
Mhm,
Marlon James actually participated in this one, and
mhm.
I was like, oh, I missed it. Marlon James, of course, is the author of A Brief History of Seven Killings, which is one of the best Caribbean works written about the Jamaica 1970s to 1980s. And I mean, I can't even finish it. It is too real.
I really love how you share these opinions like fact.
I
It's the best.
know. Yeah. In my opinion, he is one of the best. He's
Yes.
so good. But he did a short story in that book about the death of Bustamante.
Oh, interesting.
It was interesting. It was very interesting. It was from his own perspective, from Bustamante's own perspective. Beautiful
Mm.
creative writing. I think he's amazing. He's one of
I
my
think
favorites.
a number of the Caribbean creative writers have come out of Calabash, meaning got their kind of stamp of approval there. I think of Kai Miller. I know
Yes.
I have a past, she's actually my past A-level teacher. She was at ACWWS conference. She presented Sylvia Gilfillian, and
Okay. Yep.
she actually has written a work that was awarded, or it wasn't awarded, it was considered for a particular prize, the
Mm-hmm.
Road to Timnath. And she just contacted me recently to say, I'm ready for you to edit part two. So,
Oh.
I think one of my passions in terms of writing and analyzing works, whether by females or males, I like to find the small writer, the one who is not yet recognized, the one who has
Mm-hmm.
not yet,
Mm-hmm.
got that supposed stamp of approval. And I think Calabash also helps with that. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
Calabash, but I also want to add that several small islands have their own book festivals or some kind of celebration of the written word. I think of St. Martin The St.
Hmm?
Martin University, yes, they have a book festival annually. Is it annually or biennially? I believe it's annually. Um,
I'm
so if
writing it down.
yes, because there Trinidad also has, Barbados has, and that's why I wanted to talk especially about UWI, because
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
really do put forward quite a number of someone is confirming that your opinions are usually law.
That means
Your
I'm opinionated. I know. But yep. So Yui.
so many opportunities, really.
Hmm. Hmm. And I am excited to speak with you because I would love to have you back. Thank you so much for bringing so much so much richness to the conversation.
Oh, it's my
You know,
pleasure.
but I would
And
love to hear, and it's something a little bit like. Sorry, say again.
I said I'd love to be back. Absolutely.
Oh, I
We're
definitely
talking
have to have
books.
you.
I can talk forever.
But before we leave off today, I would love to hear, and I don't think I asked you this, and so this is really like putting you on the spot.
Uh,
What are your three favorite books?
ah, oh my gosh, how do you narrow books
I
to
know that
three?
rough no truth. I'm
It
sorry.
is
I'm sorry.
rough. Favorite. Oh my gosh. There are some books I go back to and read again, again, and again.
Mhm.
There are some books that I have read that have left me awed. There are some books I have read that I will never touch again. What are my three favorite books? I can't tell you. I can tell you books that have been impactful, like
Okay.
Written of the Earth,
Mhm.
Black Skin, White Mask by Franz Fanon. They shocked me at
Mhm.
just this realization of how Blacks have been treated, the raw deal they've been dealt
Mhm.
historically.
Mhm.
I'm often going back to their works in my
Mhm.
own research and my own literary analyses and all of that. So those are, although I've given you two titles because it's the same author, I'm going to say that as one, if I could be
Okay.
allowed to
Fair enough.
cheat.
That's okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Interestingly, one of my it's easier to talk about authors than books, I'm finding, because I'm going through my mind,
That's
but I'm
fair.
thinking authors. And
That's fair.
interesting, one of my favorite authors is Shakespeare. I
I love him.
I'm sorry.
I
I
love the
keep
guy.
telling
He's
my
so
students
funny.
there's a reason there are a few crazies who worship at the shrine of Shakespeare, I being one of them. I actually wanted to do my PhD in Shakespeare, and Yui
Mhm.
didn't have someone at the time to supervise me. And I remember one professor going, Shakespeare? What a compliment to him. Very dismissive.
I know. I
I
know.
I for
This
me,
day.
Shakespeare was he was just an awesome writer. Of course, there are flaws in everything. I am thinking especially of The Tempest, which I have
Mhm.
critically assessed so many times to say, this presentation of Caliban and this black hag, his mother, and this, but there are so many Caribbean persons who have written back in response to that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I love that Shakespeare's work lends itself even to that. But what I
Mhm.
really love is just his creativity and the fact that he's just an awesome writer.
Mhm.
Um, and another favorite author, which has nothing to do with academia, all with pleasure, is Nora Roberts. I don't know if this is someone
I
you
did
read.
not expect that.
Nora Roberts,
But I'm so pleased to hear you say it.
absolutely. Nora Roberts
She's so
is a
diverse.
very good writer. But what is fascinating for me, and for those who might not know Nora Roberts, we're talking about Love Book. And a lot of persons have criticized me my whole life. Since I met Mills and Boone, it's my go-to when I want to relax. It's my go-to
Yeah.
when I want to not read heavy stuff. I read the simple. But for me, Nora Roberts is not always predictable. Her writings, she's
Mhm.
just so talented. But what I really, really love is that she interweaves mythology.
Yes.
I'm a mythology baby. So the
Same.
mythology,
I'm such
the
a mythology nerd.
Celtic mythology, the Greek, the Roman, but she's especially Celtic or
Celtic.
Celtic, however
Celtic. Yeah.
you choose to pronounce it, mythology. And I just love that. I just love that.
I
So
love
I
the
love to hear
Dragonheart series. I have listened to the Dragonheart series to put myself to sleep
absolutely.
multiple times a year. I've already listened
Yeah.
to all three of those books this
Yes.
year already. So I'm so pleased to hear you say
And
that
if
because
it's
I
not a
always
trilogy,
thought you
it's not worth reading with Nora Roberts because you're going to want to hear the other or read the next in the
it's
series.
very true, very true. And
Yes,
she's also so diverse a writer because she also
she
does
is.
writes under JD
J.
Robb,
Rob.
right? So that's I'm so pleased to hear that. But thank you
Yes.
so much. This has been such a pleasure. I feel like I need to have you on like once every month or
Well, there's
every
so much more
quarter
we
or
can talk
something.
about. Why
I
not?
know there's so much, but I mean, we need to like. I'd love for you to keep us in touch with your calendar. You know, if you have anything coming up you'd like for us
Yes.
to know about from UCCI. You
Hmm.
know, UCCI is our local bastion of this type of work. So we definitely, and largely because of you and the work that you do. So please keep in touch with us, and we'd love to have you back.
Absolutely. And one of my passions is promoting local writers. I have presented on Nasaria, Roy Budden, Chris Williams, so many of the local writers, Leonard Dilbert, on the international stage, because I think it's important for persons to know that we have awesome writers, Miss Aniki Hill being one of them, right here in Cayman for the fiction and the nonfiction. And I'm so anxious for people to realize what we have right here because I discovered it my very first day in Cayman. I went to the bookstore, I went in search of local writings, and I found them. I found them in great variety. But when I tried to talk with people about them, they couldn't engage me. And that for me was so sad. So I go out and I tell people there are awesome writers and writings in the Cayman Islands. So I am committed to continuing that because I think what we do here is worth celebrating and worth applauding.
Agreed. And thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you. You're welcome.
This week, we are going to be kicking off, well, we've kicked off Women's Month, and we have a lot more to get to the rest of the month. So please keep in touch with us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.